Everyone, it's Rob.
And it's Dawn. And today we are going to do our monthly workshop to our wonderful customers on GDPR, what it is and what it means to your business.
Yes, and it doesn't mean just because, it's a European-based law that you don't have to do anything with it. You can't ignore it. So we're going to go through what it is and what you need to know for your business.
Absolutely.
All right, let me make sure I can share this. There we go. Ready? Okay. All right, let's get rolling, Dawn. Lead us off.
All right. Well, what is GDPR? So GDPR is basically stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. It is the toughest privacy and security law in the world, and many state laws, they basically use this as a benchmark to go after. First and foremost, CCPA in California, they went and did something close to the GDPR rules and regulations, and federally, we are looking at, our country's looking at doing something similar to GDPR. So we'll know more in the coming months. But that being said, this is for those in the EU, those that are basically anyone that deals with EU customers, whether they're in the EU or outside the EU and still handle EU customers, this is going to pertain.
Yeah, this is a key piece. A lot of people go, oh, we're in the US, we don't need to worry about that. Well, you do. And what we're starting to see is a lot of contracts starting to include GDPR regulations and everything else within the contract, especially on the East Coast, or if you're in Canada and you have data from anyone that is a resident or a citizen of the EU, you are required by law and their law to adhere to that. So we're going to show you what the fines are and what you need to do. So kicking off the fines, it's always about the fines, Dawn.
It's always about the fines.
It's always
Everything has
about
a fine.
the fines.
So the fines for violating GDPR are really high. There's actually two tiers of penalties, which max out at 20 million euros or 4% of global revenue, whichever is higher. Plus, the data subjects have the right to seek compensation for damages. So that's pretty big. As we know, HIPAA has some pretty stringent fines, but this is 20 million euros. That's pretty big. So this is definitely, this is definitely on a larger scale, obviously.
Yep. And what's interesting too, it talks about which is higher, not which is lower, right? So the amount they're going to get as much as they can, and the people that you've impacted can also see.
Yep.
So it's very important. So let's go through some of the key terms you need to know. So GDPR defines that array of any legal terms of length. Below are some of the most important ones referred to in the article we put together. All right, we're going to start out right here in personal data. So personal data is any of that information. I want to highlight something in here that's very specific. We talk about information, which is location. There we go. Ethnicity, gender, biometric data, religious beliefs, web cookies, political opinions, all of that. That is all personal data. That is all protected by GDPR. That is all data that you must protect in your systems. Next up, data processing.
Data processing is how are you going to process this data? Any action performed on the data, whether it's automated or manual. And this is basically collecting, recording, organizing, structuring, storing, using, erasing, so on and so forth. It's basically anything. How you process it,
right there.
Any which way, anything.
Anything and everything.
So.
And then data subject is the person whose data is being processed. These are your customers or site visitors. Don't forget the people that just hit your site. If there is a cookie, there's a cookie policy, and not the one accept or decline. It's like you need to be able to give your visitors to your website the ability to choose what they want to give you.
Yes.
That's key.
Choose only the necessary or required, or choose it all. Those are, we've all seen lately, that's been really happening a lot on many websites, especially if you've gone over to the EU, which we have. That is very structured there. Yeah. So
now, Dawn.
Yes.
The data controller and the data processor. This is one that everybody gets messed up and confused because it is a bit confusing. So Take us through it. What
So
is this?
if you're one of our HIPAA customers, which most of you are actually, you have what's known as a BAA, Business Associate Agreement. This is similar to that. You've got a covered entity in that case and a business associate, and how you're going to handle that PHI, right? Each of you and what your obligations are. This is kind of similar to that. So data controller is the person who decides why and how the data will be processed. So this is the controller. The processor is that third party that processes that data on behalf of the data controller. So data controller, I'm XYZ hospital, let's just say. Data processor, I'm IT for that hospital, or EHR or EMR for that hospital. Let's take that a step further. That I basically have the patient data in my EHR cloud system, whatever that is. But again, I'm processing that data. The controller is the hospital's controlling it. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of who's what. But if there's any questions, and we've had customers going through when we do this for GDPR assessments, kind of questioning who's who, and that's definitely can get confusing. So feel free to reach out.
So simply, the controller is the owner, and the processor processes the data. Got it.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to data protection principles. So now that we know what a data, I have to go back to what I said.
Goodness.
My data controller and data processor.
More coffee.
We do have, now part of this being a Monday afternoon, you do get to have a coffee break in the middle of the workshop.
And here at Van Ryn, we love coffee. You probably have all had some of our coffee from our wonderful roaster here in Texas. So yes, grab some coffee.
It's so hot, we just throw it out in the sun now. A lot easier. It just gets natural bake. It's all natural. It's all natural. All right. Data protection principles. If you process data, you have to do so according to these 7 protection accountable principles. These are the principles written into law in the EU that you must adhere to. Lawfulness, fairness, transparency. Everything must be lawful, fair, and transparent. And then purpose limitation, like what is the general purpose of acquiring the data and using the data? Why are we using that, right? The big piece too is a data minimization. What does that talk about, Dawn?
Minimize the data. Less is more. Collect and process only as much data as you need. So definitely that is important. Absolutely.
Accuracy is key, making sure all the data is accurate. And then storage limitations. You don't just keep it indefinitely. Remember, it's not your data or data. You have to give us the ability, us saying if we're a consumer, the ability to expunge that data or receive that data from you once they go on. All right, let's go down here to 6 and 7. Integrity and confidentiality, is key in everything that we do. Right. So processing the data, we must have the utmost highest in integrity and confidentiality of that data and protect it from incidents or breaches. And then accountability is key, right? Making sure we know where the data flows, making sure the people are accountable, making sure they are educated and trained how to handle the data, and then what we do with that. You like data?
Yeah. And this is important, demonstrate the GDPR compliance. So compliance as a culture is huge here, is making sure you as a business that you're holding yourself accountable so you keep your customers' trust. That is huge.
Very big. All right. What are your responsibilities?
So you must comply with GDPR. And this is, again, if you're in the EU or working with customers in the EU. This is going to apply to you. So you need to implement technical and operational safeguards to protect personal data. And the first step is a GDPR assessment or audit. Okay.
Who can do that?
We can do that for you. And
we have
done.
It's a thing.
We have done it for some of our HIPAA.
I got a book on it.
HIPAA customers.
Is there a book on it?
No. So this is basically determining what personal data that you control, where it's located, how it is secured. So it's shorter than HIPAA, but it's a little more detailed. You really need to like how is this data really being processed? I mean, it's very specific. And so you must adhere to the principles outlined in GDPR, obtaining consent, ensuring data portability, and also you may be required to appoint a DPO, which is a data protection officer, kind of like a compliance officer, right?
Yeah.
And key here, privacy notice. At the bottom of your website, all of y'all should have a privacy notice already. If you are working with GDPR customers, you need to have GDPR language in there. We can help you with that. So this is very, very important to have that in that privacy notice. Again, this tells your users what data you're using, how you're using it, how you're storing it, what you're doing with it.
Yep.
Okay. So really, really key there on your responsibility. And this is, again, you need to make sure it's clear, it's transparent. What are you doing? Needs to be provided free of charge.
Yep.
And it needs to have specific language in there. Again, we can help you with that. Some of y'all, we've already helped you with this.
Yep.
So
put all that fun stuff together.
Yep.
We already talked about the privacy notice. That's on the bottom of the site. That should be included actually in every contract, everything. People need to know how you're going to handle the data and what you're going to do with it.
Yep.
All right. Data protection and privacy policies. So we talked briefly about these is within your contracts and within your websites. Even in the links within your social media pages, you need to have your privacy policies and or a link to that back to your website. How do you handle that data, right? What do you do with it?
Yep.
Then the data privacy agreement, which is sometimes that NDA, which is what you need to include within your contracts to make sure that everything is contractually correct and that your customers understand how the data is being processed. Then the SAR process. Let's go with that, Dawn.
This explains to the employees the action plan. And this is when you get a data request from a client or they say member of the public. Again, these are kind of European terminology here, but it's basically, a customer saying, I want my data, or I want you to delete my data, or XYZ. So this allows this document, this process document, helps your organization understand what you need to do with that data, what this person is requesting.
Yeah. And then the data processor procedure. What do we do?
Data breach.
What'd I say?
Processor.
Oh.
It's okay.
Data? Because I didn't say
data. Data breach. And again,
let's have coffee.
Data breach procedure. Also, you should have a breach policy already, but there's some additional language with GDPR on that as well. Again, we can help you with that. Some of y'all, we've already helped you with that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, the DPIA. That's the big one.
Yes. This is basically the internal template, and this basically data privacy impact assessment. It really, when you start a project, you're getting ready to sign on a customer, or a prospect, you're prospecting someone. This is kind of thinking about mapping it out, like saying, okay, let's see what the risk level is.
Yeah.
How much data do they have? Should we be working, in this space or that type of thing? And this is really an impact assessment that you can do as a business, and you can kind of look at it. And we, of course, can help you with this, but it kind of gives you, it's kind of like a questionnaire, a checklist, if you will, kind of a pre-assessment, kind of see where things are and see if it's, if you want to move forward with that project or that customer.
Yep.
So,
key pieces.
Yep.
Key pieces. All right. Now, like we like to do in every workshop, is give you some action items you can take back to your company. These are things to think about. And obviously, you're going to get the video, you get this handout, obviously, be a customer of ours. So first up, investigate your data. Do you know where your data flows, right? We've gone through our risk audits. We're going to understand where the data is, but think about from conception if I came to your website, what are you capturing? Are we doing Salesforce intakes, MailChimps, HubSpots, no spots, automated bot, whatever? Where does that data flow? What databases does it go to? Is it geographically, where is it? Is it the US? Is it the EU? Is it in APAC? Is it somewhere else? Knowing where that data is is key. And also make sure you take a look at your data and see if you have anyone from the EU in there. You know what it looks like. Have your folks dive into the data and understand what's there. Once you get just one contact from the EU, you've automatically fall under GDPR. So get ready and be prepared for it.
Yeah.
The next, prepare to perform the GDPR audit. You really need to understand where that is. If you understand where the data is, and prepare for that DPIA, which obviously we do, and we walk you through that, and you understand the risks. And then training and create required policies and procedures. So education is big here at Van Ryn. We have our GDPR training. You can add that into your subscription already, so your team can be prepared. So you take the audit, create the policies, training, and you're set. All right, number 3, Dawn, take us back. Take us on.
Review your review your contracts. Review your contracts over the last 4 years looking for GDPR language. There's some companies that have a kind of a blanket GDPR statement for all contracts, but let's be real specific. First of all, does it make sense? Do you need it in there? Maybe you have a separate contract for GDPR. If you're having it as a blanket statement, it may not be appropriate. So we're happy to look at that, take a look at that contract, see if it needs to be there or see if it needs to be updated or that type of thing. And big thing, insurance policies. I have an insurance background. So insurance policies. So your cyber insurance, your E&O, your general liability, GDPR, does it have a stipulation on working with EU customers or even Canadian customers? There is a lot of ins and outs to insurance. And so you want to make sure that you have coverage for working with specific types of customers in specific countries. So there may be some stipulation. It's kind of like when you're asked if you're handling cryptocurrency or that type of thing in insurance. They ask you if you deal with that and stuff.
Yep.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, you need to be honest with how you're doing business and to make sure you have that coverage. Because the last thing you want is if something happens, a breach occurs, and it's all from an EU customer, and then they say, "Oh, well, your cyber only covers, stateside."
Mm-hmm.
So double check that.
Yep, double check that.
Yep.
Well, awesome. I think we did a good job. Well, of course we did a good job, right? That's right. No, but I hope this is very informational for you as you go through that. You'll go through the PDF. You'll have that. You'll have this video.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if there's questions, send a note to hello@vanryncompliance.com. Our team will receive that and we'll get those answered. But this gives you the great feedback and framework of what GDPR is and how it impacts your business. Right, Dawn? Anything else you want to add?
Nope. Just reach out if you have questions. And look forward to seeing y'all the next monthly workshop.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.